Well, well, well. What do you know? They happened to get to the bottom of this bomber, sort of. And you know what? I don't know if anybody cares. I don't know if anybody cares or if anybody's even paying attention or if anybody even realizes or if anybody even remembers this fella in the first place. Do you? Do you think anybody remembers this cold dude, this Urkel doppelganger? Do you think, seriously, honest to God, I'm not trying to be cute here. I'm not, you know me, I'm not trying to be cute. Do you think anybody even cares? Do you think people remember this? If you said, hey, what about that bomber? What? Did he bomb? Did it? Well, I guess. Whatever happened? Who was it? Did they find out? What was it? And when you saw his picture, did you think a black guy? DNC and RNC and this guy? What did you think when you first saw his face? Did you have to remind yourself, what is it again that he did? What did he do? I'm not really sure. I don't want to throw a turd in the punch bowl here, my friends, but what really is the big deal here? I mean, it's good. Hey, it's great. Kash Patel got to put on his Ray jacket and he can talk about stuff. I don't think you're going to be seeing that Ray jacket anytime soon after the expose. But isn't that something? Isn't that an incredible thing? What exactly is going on here? And what's interesting to note, which I find fascinating, is that we're happy, but nobody's been able to really explicate or explain or limn exactly what it is that this guy did. Why is he so important? Or why is he so critical? But it's nonetheless important. At least it's something. At least it's something because remember, the whole notion of January 6th, nothing ever happened with that. Now let's look at the criminal affidavit in the complaint. Remember, the complaint was done to expedite this. They're going to have to take this to the grand jury. This is to arrest him. This is probable cause. He's not indicted yet. This is the preface, so to speak. This arrests him, and then they take this to the grand jury. But the affidavit, by the way, which is really pretty good, lays out the FBI's formal basis and bases for arresting this Brian J. Cole Jr. This is a 30-year-old resident of Woodbridge, Virginia, as the individual who planted the January 5th pipe bombs outside the RNC and DNC headquarters. Okay, he planted them. The document is submitted to establish probable cause for charges under federal explosive statutes, including transporting an explosive in interstate commerce with intent to kill, injure, intimidate, or destroy property under 18 U.S.C. 844 paren D. Also, maliciously attempting to damage or destroy buildings in interstate commerce under 1844 U.S. 844 paren I. And the affiant, the one giving the affidavit, is an FBI special agent trained in domestic and international terrorism investigations. This is the way affidavits normally work out. The agent states that the affidavit summarizes the essential facts and does not include every single detail uncovered in the investigation, but gives you kind of an disestablished probable cause. The discovery on January the 6th, 2021. Let's go back in time, shall we? Law enforcement, as you recall, law enforcement agencies, by the way, received reports of a suspected explosive device outside the Republican National Committee headquarters in Washington. About 15 minutes later, a second suspected device was found near the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Why were they found? They weren't detonated, they were just found. Now, both National Party headquarters operate across state lines and are used in interstate commerce, of course, which gives federal authorities jurisdiction. That's the way this works, okay? Okay. The United States Capitol Police Hazardous Devices Section conducted. And shall we say, they're called render safe procedures. So the Capitol Police basically came and said, okay, we defused them. The FBI later confirmed the devices were real improvised explosive devices built with hard metal containers, end caps, electrical wiring, a fusing system, steel wool, and homemade black powder. Components included a 1-inch by 8-inch galvanized pipe, alligator clips, a 9-volt battery and connector, red and black 14-gauge electrical wire, a white kitchen timer, almost like you see in cartoons, paper clips, and steel wool. The FBI laboratory conducted the devices met the definition of destructive devices under federal law. Then there's surveillance footage of the bomber. This is very interesting. FBI analysts reviewed video surveillance from the evening of January the 5th, 2021. About 7:34 p.m. and 8:18 p.m., the same individual is seen moving through the Capitol Hill neighborhood, carrying a backpack and wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, dark pants, Nike Air Max Speed Turf shoes, dark gloves, and a face covering. Interesting. I think those are called masks, that COVID thing. The person periodically adjusted eyeglasses. The individual placed the DNC device at about 7:54 p.m. and the RNC device at about 8:16 p.m. Are you getting this so far? Are you feeling it? Does this sound exciting to you when you hear it? Well, that's kind of the way it's supposed to read. It's supposed to be kind of exciting. It sounds, dare I say, furtive. It sounds like, ooh. I like to read these affidavits. The FBI conducted a photogrammetry. You like this? Photogrammetry, height analysis, and estimated the bomber was roughly 5'7", give or take an inch. They can tell that just by looking at these. Then the identification of Brian Cole. Urkel. The affidavit identified Cole as a 30-year-old man who stands 5 feet 6 inches and wears corrective eyeglasses. Cole lived with his family members in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Excuse me, there is a Woodbridge, New Jersey, Woodbridge, Virginia, and worked in the office of a bail bondsman. The FBI obtained banking and credit card records for Cole covering 2018 through 2025. These financial records show Cole purchased nearly every component used in the pipe bombs during 2019 and 2020 at the Home Depot, Lowe's, Micro Center, and Walmart locations in Northern Virginia. The affidavit details these purchases: galvanized pipes. Cole bought a 1-inch by 8-inch galvanized pipes, identical in size and markings to those used in the bombs. Purchases occurred in June and November of 2020. End caps he purchased. He bought 12 black and 2 galvanized end caps, matching the manufacturer of the bomb components. Purchases occurred across multiple Home Depot stores. Home Depot. 9-volt battery connectors. The connectors found in the bombs came from a specific distributor that sold under 8,000 units nationwide between late 2017 and January 2021. Cole bought 5 of those connectors at Micro Center in November and December of 2019. Kitchen timers. Remember that? Those are... The bomber used white kitchen timers. White. Cole bought 2 of the same style at a Walmart on June the 3rd of 2020. Isn't this specific? Isn't this great? I wonder if Palantir helped with any of this. Red and black 14-gauge wire. He made multiple purchases of the same type of wiring used in the devices across 2019 and 2020. He used steel wool. You see, both of the bombs contain steel wool. He purchased steel wool from Home Depot in December of 2020. Think this is establishing probable cause? I do. Additional bomb-making tools. He bought safety glasses, a wire stripping tool, wire nuts. You ever have wire nuts? Painful. Sandpaper, a machinist file, protective gloves, and disinfecting wipes in 2020. After January 5th, the affidavit emphasizes that Cole continued buying bomb components weeks after the bombs were discovered. For example, they noticed on January the 21st and 22nd of 2021, he bought additional galvanized pipes, timers, batteries, steel wool, 9-volt connectors, and alligator clips. This guy's not done yet. He's on a mission. He's like that George Machevsky, whatever, stop me before I bomb again. His location matched to the bomber's route. This is interesting. The FBI obtained historical cell site records for Cole's cell phone. These records show that his device engaged in data sessions on January the 5th, 2021, between 7:39 p.m. and 8:24 p.m. Each connection placing him along the exact path the bomber walked between the DNC and RNC. The FBI's cellular analysis survey team compared the phone's tower sectors with known surveillance timestamps, and the alignment was tight. Listen to this. I love the specifics of this. By the way, use a burner phone, just say. 7:39 p.m. Data connections matched the bomber walking west on D Street and south on South Capitol Street. 7:44 p.m. matched the bomber walking east on Ivy Street. 7:59 p.m. matched the movement south on New Jersey Avenue and east on E Street. 8:14 p.m. they matched the bomber leaving Rumsey Court toward First Street. 8:23 and 8:24 matched the final captured footage as the bomber moved east towards Pennsylvania Avenue. And you thought that was a phone. It's a tracking device. The FBI notes that the cell sectors, though imperfect in coverage, are consistent with the exact route documented on video. And the conclusion of probable cause is as follows. And this is interesting. Based upon surveillance footage, and this is kind of like a culmination, based on surveillance footage showing the bomber's clothing, glasses, height, movement, timing. I even think there was something about his particular gait. Cole's purchases of every major component used in both bombs, his location data matching the bomber's route. Imagine this as a closing argument. Minute by minute, his continued purchase of bomb components after the attempted attack. The FBI asserted most convincingly that probable cause that it did exist, that Brian J. Cole Jr. is the individual who planted both pipe bombs and that he violated federal explosive statutes. And the affidavit, if you read, it's very interesting, stresses that this is not a full accounting at all of all investigative information. It includes just enough evidence to justify a criminal complaint and an arrest. And apparently it was it. And that was it. Now, isn't that fascinating? I find it fascinating. How thorough is this? Incredible. Laurie Cook says, does the lawyer-client confidence last after death? That's a very interesting thing. The question is, does it survive? And I believe it does in some cases. I know that's kind of a hedgy, kind of a bad thing, but I think in some cases it really does. Especially, well, look at the Epstein case. A lot of people are saying, well, what about that one? What about that story? See, that's a very interesting case. But for the most part, I don't know why it would apply here because I believe he's very much alive. But here's the question that people are asking. First, does it matter? I guess. It's not exactly, the most important case of all time, but at least it's something. But there was absolutely no interest whatsoever for the FBI before. They just sat on this. Why do you think that was? Why do you think that was? Why? Same. Remember, these these same FBI agents who are putting out this 15-page affidavit saying that we have no faith in Kash Patel. A lot of these folks sat on their ass for all those years under Biden, and now all of a sudden they care so much about this. All of a sudden, isn't that interesting? All of a sudden, we got to get to the bottom of this. And this is the worst. There's mutiny and Bongino and Pam Bondi. You didn't do anything before if it didn't involve Trump. There is such corruption, not in the front lines, not the hard-working men and women in the field offices. No. The FBI is a wonderful. I'm not being gratuitous here. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. They're great people. The people who go after, kidnappings and bank robberies, and the men and women in the field offices, absolutely wonderful people. But this is a different story. This is a different kind of group. Someone writes, Lori writes, they are lying. I don't know who they are, but I'm sure you're right about that one. Now, let me stop you right now, my friends, very quickly. Just one, I want to remind you of something which is very, very important, especially during this holiday season. I can't say this enough because the response has been the sales of preparedness food, emergency food, has been through the roof. And it's almost like you can tell the state of fear by virtue of how these items are being sold and the like. It's very interesting. It's a very, very fascinating issue. So, my friends, I want to remind you that Christmas is the perfect time to say I love you to a friend or a loved one with the buy one, gift two Christmas special. And you have to hear this clearly. All month long, when you pick up a 4-week emergency food kit from preparewithlionel.com, they will send you 2 additional 1-week food kits absolutely free. No strings, no gimmicks. You secure your household's backup supply, and you instantly have 2 life-saving gifts to hand to people you care about. Those 1-week kits are perfect for anybody already into preparedness and sapience, or anyone who needs that wake-up call, who might be, let's say, cajoled, as suggested. One small box can turn someone from vulnerable to ready. In times like these, my friend, that matters more than you know. We all feel the tension in the air. We all know what's going on. And right now is the greatest time for you to say, I'm going to put that fear to good work and to good use. Go to preparewithlionel.com, get the buy one gift two Christmas. Buy one gift two Christmas special right now through the season. After this, it's over. And also, when you go to preparewithlionel.com, just check out all of the various things that are available. Look at the items. It'll blow you away. Now, let's talk about this. How exactly does this thing work? How does this work? This is the most important thing. For 5 years, the January 6th pipe bomb mystery hung over Washington like some fog. And the media didn't really care. It became one of those political ghost stories that everybody talked about, but nobody in the Biden administration seemed eager to solve. Gee, I wonder why. And the surveillance footage, the identical backpack, the drops of the RNC and DNC, the conveniently timed discovery right as the Capitol was spiraling into chaos, all of it faded into the background as the government plowed ahead with the standard January 6th bullshit. The bomb somehow became the least discussed component of the most scrutinized day in modern American politics. And now suddenly, my friends, the Department of Justice under President Trump burst into the briefing room with an arrest and the kind of clarity that had been suspiciously absent for half a decade. Why do you think that was, pray chance? What do you think changed everything? What changed anything? What was so special about that? I find it fascinating. And most people, as I said, didn't know anything about it. They knew nothing about it because they just, well, as you can tell, most Americans don't know these things for reasons, my friend, that I don't really understand. And that could be a separate issue, right? In addition to all this, what is it? What is this collective detached lunacy? Why is this so? This is something which I find absolutely fascinating. And the reason why is he goes into that selective interest, but also the selective interest, which is primarily presented and provided by virtue of selective news coverage, by virtue of the bought and sold deep state social media jackals, in particular, the cutouts who involve themselves in absolutely nothing, who have no interest whatsoever in really helping anyone get to the bottom of anything. But it's fascinating. And today it was a big thing. Again, Kash Patel, he can get his jacket out. And let me tell you something, suspiciously absent, already mentioned. And boy, did Pam Bondi make sure we understood why. Pam Bondi, in a blunt and unmistakably pellucid way, she said the part the Washington press corps never wanted to say out loud. The evidence had been sitting there collecting dust, not lost, not undiscovered, not hidden in some corner of a digital archive. It had been in the hands of federal investigators during the Biden years, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. Pam Bondi stressed this again and again and again. This was not a new tip. Nothing magical materialized. Nobody came forward with new information. Nothing. The Trump DOJ simply did the work the previous administration ignored. That's nonfeasance, not malfeasance, nonfeasance. And it's remarkable today, this admission, if you think about it, one that cuts straight into the heart of the suspicious that many of us feel and hold, and are held by millions of Americans who always believed that the pipe bomb investigation was frozen for political reasons. Pam Bondi said the arrest of Brian Cole Jr., this Urkel doppelganger, came from examining old bank records and cell tower data, the kind of elementary but time-consuming investigative shoe leather work any functioning FBI unit is built to do. She framed it as a straightforward case that had been left untouched. When she said the investigation had languished, she meant it. She pulled no punches. This is the work of President Trump's administration. This is what the Trump DOJ did, not Biden's. And then came the courtroom details. This Cole is charged with using explosives. More charges could follow, we don't know. And of course, he's scheduled for his first appearance Friday. And according to the unsealed filings, he bought the materials, as I mentioned, used to construct the devices. And the government matched those purchases perfectly with cell phone data. I mean, it was absolutely brilliant. All placed on the night of January 5th. It is classic investigative stacking. And that's what makes Bondi's frustration so vivid and so palpable and so real. These steps are not revolutionary. They are the basic blocking and tackling of federal criminal work. Why was this not done years ago? Why? The press dutifully reported what everyone already knew, that the surveillance footage showed someone in a hoodie and gloves placing two viable pipe bombs near both party headquarters. These devices were not toys. They could have detonated. A woman doing laundry found the first one. Let that sink in. In the capital city of the United States, during one of the most tense political moments in modern history, a citizen found the bomb before the government did. She called the police. They searched. They found the second bomb. And meanwhile, top officials, including then Vice President Kamala, had unknowingly passed close to one of the devices earlier in the day. Now, how these details didn't spark relentless urgency from federal authorities? I don't know. It remains one of the strangest mysteries in recent time. And then came the congressional report. It confirmed what observers long suspected, that the FBI under Biden scaled down the investigation after only 2 months. Why? The report said the case team initially worked aggressively, but the momentum kind of collapsed. They said the leads were drying up. What? There's no leads. They said the inquiry fizzled, yet here we are 5 years later discovering that the key links, the leads, were available the entire time. Pam Bondi's comments now hang over this report like a flashing sign here. And if the evidence was sitting there, what does that say about federal priorities during those years? How much more of this we're going to have to take? A lot more, because we're becoming used to it, and that scares me. You know, the base never thought. I never bought the official shrug. The mystery of the pipe bombs grew into a quiet kind of an undercurrent of anger. People ask why the bombs appear the night before political chaos unfolded. How did this guy know? They ask why surveillance footage was limited. Why no suspect had ever been identified. Why such an explosive detail remained unresolved while grandmothers and tourists from January 6th received full-scale federal pursuit. Why? The unanswered questions fed theories, not fringe theories, but reasonable questions from reasonable people born from the very absence of any kind of appreciable interest shown by your government that was supposed to care the most for you. Big Dan Bongino, now the FBI deputy director, had been one of the loudest voices demanding answers before joining the Bureau when he was doing his podcast. He had warned, and I think there's something credible to be said, he had warned that the refusal to pursue the pipe bomb case wasn't normal by any stretch of the imagination. He questioned whether the administration at the time was avoiding something uncomfortable. Critics mocked him then, but he's been vindicated now. He wasn't spinning some conspiracy theory. He was expressing basic common sense. A viable explosive device placed at the headquarters of both major political parties should have been treated like a national emergency, not some kind of an afterthought. Pam Bondi and the DOJ were careful not to assign motive to Mr. Cole, which is very good. There's no need. I don't care why he did it. They said the investigation is still in the early stages, which is the most important point, and that's the correct posture. But observers can't ignore the glaring contrast between Trump's DOJ's dogged approach and the lethargy of the Biden-era administration, unless you were an innocent protester, basically venting your thoughts against the government. And the administration that turned January 6th into the centerpiece of its political identity refused to aggressively pursue anything. The only component of that day that involved bombs, and they didn't. Why? Some will argue incompetence, others will argue political avoidance, others will say the case was simply hard. It was just hard. But Biden's description of evidence, Bondi's description of evidence, and the evidence collecting efforts and the evidence collecting dust, it makes it hard to accept the most charitable explanations. This was a major national security issue buried under bureaucratic silence. Only when the administration changed, only when Trump came in, did the case come alive again. So it seems, my friends, that this arrest of Brian Cole Jr., Urkel, I hope will open many doors and raise many questions and many foci. And I hope it'll force the public to maybe confront for the first time in a long time the fact that the government under Biden diverted resources away from the most dangerous element of January 6th, bombs. There were no bombs. Remember, despite what you think about January 6th, there was no serious violence. There were police officers who died, but had nothing to do. Nobody died there. I think there were some suicides and some other matters later on, but nobody died there. None of this. And President Trump's administration, while pouring unimaginable manpower into this particular case, was matched only by pouring unimaginable manpower into political prosecutions that fit a preferred narrative. And it's going to force, I hope, experts and historians to ask why a bomb case received less attention than misdemeanor trespassing or parading without a permit. I hope it will force, what am I saying? I hope it'll force journalists to maybe answer for their own disinterest. You know, in the coming weeks, as the DOJ releases more information and the courts begin process, you know, the country will discover whether there was the end of the mystery once and for all, or is this the beginning of a larger reckoning? Let's see also what he says. Pam Bondi has made it clear. This administration took a very cold case that had gathered dust and really and cracked it with nothing more than time, discipline, and focused work. That alone reshapes the January 6th conversation in ways, I think, that the old media isn't really ready to handle. I mean, listen, the old media is dead. It's dead. You know it. If you want, we can discuss more of this, my friends. But in the meantime, I ask you to think of these questions and to ask why. Ask yourself, why? Why did this happen? Why was this the case? Why was this the case? It's one of the most fascinating stories there is. And I hope something is done. I hope maybe our people are inspired to ask these questions, because the mainstream media, as you know, it's dead. They're dead. They don't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. And what we do is we spend a lot of times on things really that don't matter. There has to be a review of one of the worst moments, a draconian overreaction regarding honest, ordinary, good people who merely wanted to protest and did nothing but parade without a permit, march without a permit. That's it. Allowed in, invited in. Don't ever let people forget January 6th. Remember that. That was the precursor. That's what these guys did. They wanted to make sure that this was done, that this was focused, that every single thing about this was done in order to make you and everyone else aware of something so serious. In any event, dear and great friends, I love you for being with me. I thank you so much for your comments. Ultimately, I ask you also to like this video, which is very, very critical. I've got a great one coming up about it's kind of a forensic analysis of the Candace Owens fortune, the empire, and how the Macron, notice how I say it, the Macron website lawsuit has done nothing but energize a people and a platform like nobody ever thought available. So that's coming up. Make sure you're subscribed to Lionel Nation here on YouTube. Lionel Nation. It's a beaut. It's rendering, as we say. Also follow Mrs. L at Lynn's Warriors. And tonight, don't forget always, overnights, 1 to 5 on the other side of midnight. That's the name of my show on WABC. The flamethrower. And Laurie Cuck, thank you so much, dear, sweet, and glorious friend, for your benevolence and beneficence and your philanthropy and your charity this evening. All right, my friends, I wish you a great day. Stay tuned. I may be back later. I don't know. One never knows about these things. Have a great and a glorious day, my friend. And until then, I always remind you that the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Da-da.